Hi, I'm Louisa DC and I have a question for you. Do you have a book that's been clogging up your heart and your hard drive for years? Perhaps you've started it, perhaps you haven't started it, but you just have this personal story that you ache to tell. You've always wanted to write a book, but you don't know how to start. I've created a really lovely digital program for you to follow, even if you have started that book and you've written a really rough draft and don't know how to edit it. It's called 90-Day Memoir Manuscript, and it's basically a digital blueprint for you to follow to go from start to finish of writing that first draft of your personal story. So where this came from for me is I've written and published 2 memoirs, and I wrote the first draft in 3 months for both of my memoirs, Love and Other U-Turns and A Letter from Paris. I think it's important to get that first draft down quickly, whether you take 3 or 6 months, but not 5 years or 10 years, which I know a lot of people struggle with, and I've heard from a lot of writers that reach the middle of the manuscript and really struggle to continue, or they don't know how to structure it. Structure is a big problem, I think, with personal story. So what I've included in this program really covers everything that you need to know that you've probably battled with to get this story down on the page. So we cover the 7 C's that I believe lead to completion. We start with comprehension, which is just the basics of memoir. So memoir is personal story, and there's a few really unique aspects to writing memoir that you need to get down. Whether you are hoping to self-publish or traditionally publish, it's important to understand the genre. We move from comprehension to clarity. So this is where I help you find your hook and your focus sentence. And there's lots of templates and downloadable prompts, so you're never sitting down at the computer wondering, what the hell do I write next, or how do I structure this? We move from that to chronology, which is all about the 3-act story structure. I love the 3-act story structure and the hero and the heroine's journey, because I think it's really great for memoir in terms of like telling a personal story with that structure in mind. So there's heaps and heaps of prompts in that section as well, so that if you have reached the messy middle, if you're coming to this program with half a draft or even a draft that needs reshaping, you can really use even just that section to reshape it. We move from that to craft, which is where I go into showing and not telling, really setting the scene in your chapters and structuring each chapter like a mini story in itself. I also talk about archetypes and how you can show these archetypes in memoir. After craft, we go to conflict, which is basically the juice of story. Without conflict, there is no story. And a lot of writers that I've spoken to with memoir really struggle with conflict as well, because in most personal stories, the conflict is internal. So how do you show that? Well, there's lots and lots of prompts for you as well to see where you need to put that conflict in and how you need to shape it, particularly if it's internal. We move from conflict to cub-like protection, which is basically self-care during the writing process. With memoir, particularly, it's very different to fiction and even non-fiction when it's not something you've been through. Self-care is absolutely paramount. And this is actually another reason why I think a lot of people give up on writing their story halfway through, is because they don't have these self-care mechanisms in place to really make the process as nice as possible. So then we move to completion, and it's not over when you finish the draft. There's a few things you really need to stop and avoid doing because it can sabotage your success. So that's a really quick overview of the program. It's basically a digital blueprint. It's an immersion, so you have access for life, but if you want to get your memoir down in 90 days or less, if you just follow the steps, sit down at the computer, you need maybe an hour a day, and you follow this process, you will have your memoir manuscript down in 90 days or less. Okay, so you can sign up below. All the details, if you want an even more detailed breakdown, are in the page below. But I hope to see you in the program.